Before the Civil War ended slavery in the United States, 4 million enslaved men, women, and even children were treated as property and weren't allowed to make choices about their own lives. In the middle of the war, Abraham Lincoln issued a proclamation declaring people to be free in some parts of the country. But it took over 2 years for one family in Texas before they were able to realize that things were all different.
All different now. Juneteenth, the first day of freedom. By Angela Johnson, illustrated by E.B. Lewis. A June morning breeze off the port blew the smell of honeysuckle past the fields, across the yard, and into our room to wake us. And nobody knew, as we ate a little, talked a little, and headed to the fields as the sun was rising, that soon it would be all different. Then we worked and worked and worked some more under the hot Texas sun, until word spread from the port to the town, through the countryside, and into the fields, that a Union general had read from a balcony that we were all now and forever free, and things would be all different now. I watched as my Aunt Laura sang as she held her baby. Mr. Jake, who some say was 100, cried quietly. And a group of grown people bowed their heads and whispered things to each other I could not hear. My mama held my hand softly and looked beyond as another breeze blew over and everything fell into a hush. But later, Papa, Mama, the aunts and uncles, and all of my cousins had an afternoon picnic by the water. My baby brother crawled around our blanket as we listened to the sounds of the waves. And as more people joined us, we ate as a free people, laughed as free people, and told stories as free people on into the night. What was before would be no more. As we walked back home in the cool of the night, soothed our tired feet that padded quietly past the shadowy fields of cotton, and in the morning, the smell of honeysuckle will wake me again, besides my sisters and brother, to a time that will be, for all of us, all different now. At first, Juneteenth was only celebrated within the African American community. Celebrators would play games, eat food, and dress in nice clothing to symbolize that they no longer wore the garments of slavery. Sometimes white landowners would oppose the celebration by refusing their newly freed workers their property. In response, Juneteenth celebrations mostly took place at churches or on donated land. Eventually, in the 1890s, sites like Emancipation Park in Houston, Texas, and Booker T. Washington Park in Mejia, Texas, were bought specifically for holding Juneteenth celebrations. During the early 1900s, interest in celebrating Juneteenth declined. The Emancipation Proclamation was credited with ending slavery, and General Granger's role in freeing the Texas slaves 2.5 years after the proclamation was widely forgotten. Then, in the 1930s, the Great Depression forced many people off the farms and into the cities for jobs. Unless the June 19th fell on a weekend, there were very few participants available to celebrate, as they had to go to work. Awareness of Juneteenth increased again during the civil rights movements of the 1950s and 1960s. African Americans reconnected with this important part of their slave heritage and used it to fuel their fight for equal rights. The Poor People's March in Washington, D.C. in 1968 specifically inspired many African Americans to begin celebrating Juneteenth again. Throughout the next several years, African American state legislators Al Edwards helped to increase awareness of Juneteenth until it was finally declared an official state holiday in Texas on January 1st, 1980. In today's society, Juneteenth is widely celebrated. It is a day for celebrating African American freedom and achievement. The Smithsonian, Henry Ford Museum, and countless other institutions sponsor activities and celebrations for Juneteenth, hoping to educate more people about African American history and culture in general. However, Juneteenth has also morphed into a more national, symbolic celebration of respect for all cultures.
As the family in our story found out, slavery as it was in the United States is over. We don't deal with the kind of pain and uncertainty that enslaved people live through every day. But the world can still throw us challenges. That can be scary, and it's okay to feel scared sometimes. It's also important that we have hope and keep planning for the future. Think of a time in your life where you were wishing for things could be different. For example, as we're filming this now, a lot of us aren't able to go to school or see our friends. What would you like to do when things are different? Will you have an afternoon picnic by the water like the family in our story? Will you go on a long walk with your friends? Ride your bike? Play on the playground? Think ahead. Make a plan. You never know how soon things might change. And if you would like to share your plans for the future, write it down. Draw a picture or make a video. With your parents' permission, you can even send us a copy at education@acwm.org. As always, we'll choose our favorites to go up on our website. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again